Hey there, focused learners, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're setting off on a really energetic, educational journey through literally the entire human experience. We're going to explore the fascinating trajectory of our lives, starting all the way back from being crying babies, right up to becoming the kind of people who, well, complain when the Wi-Fi is too slow. As future healthcare professionals, especially if you're in a field like radiology, understanding this journey is absolutely vital. You're going to be communicating with and caring for patients at every single stage of life, from the maternity ward all the way to navigating the complexities of end-of-life care.
Okay, let's dive into this. I absolutely love this quote from our source material. It's from a modern African college classroom, and it just perfectly captures the full spectrum of our lives. We are going to systematically uncover how humans grow physically, emotionally, socially, and mentally. By the end of this explainer, you'll have a clear map of these stages and understand exactly why hitting these developmental milestones matters so much in a clinical setting.
Now, before we start mapping out the timeline, we need to establish the foundational difference between two terms we often use interchangeably, but really shouldn't. Growth simply means an increase in physical size, getting taller, gaining weight. Development, on the other hand, is all about the improvement in our abilities and our overall maturity. It spans the physical, cognitive, emotional, and social changes we undergo. It's the difference between just getting physically bigger and actually maturing in how we navigate the entire arc of our lives, from our very first breaths all the way to our final days receiving end-of-life care.
All right, let's see how closely you're following along. Let's do a really quick pop quiz to test your grasp of this basic terminology. Based on what we just established, which of these terms specifically refers to an increase in body size? Is it A, emotion, B, development, C, growth, or D, learning? Take a second and lock in your answer.
And if you went with C, growth, you hit the nail on the head. Excellent job. I see somebody is already prepared for their final exams. It's super important to keep this distinction in mind as we move forward, because we're going to be tracking both how we grow physically and how we develop complex new abilities.
So, here is the literal human journey we are about to take together. This timeline maps it all out, going from the prenatal stage to neonatal, infancy, childhood, adolescence, and finally into adulthood and old age. It's a brilliant reminder that development starts long, long before a baby even utters their first mama. Let's break down these stages one by one.
We start at the very beginning, the prenatal stage. This is all happening right inside the womb. During this time, we see massive fetal growth, the development of basic reflexes, and crucial responses to outside stimuli. It's also a highly sensitive period where maternal drug effects can have a profound impact. But, what's really fun to think about is that response to stimuli. When pregnant mothers say their baby kicked right after hearing some loud music, they aren't imagining it. That baby is literally already attending concerts in the womb.
Moving right along into the neonatal stage. This is immediately after birth. Now, newborn babies sleep a lot. We're talking upwards of 14 to 17 hours a day. Honestly, as our lecturer points out, some college students probably qualify as newborns during the holiday break. But jokes aside, right after birth, medical professionals need to rapidly assess the health of the baby. Which brings us to our next question. What score is commonly used to assess newborn babies? Is it the Glasgow score, Apgar score, IQ score, or BMI score?
Yep, the correct answer is B, the Apgar score. This is the essential assessment for newborns to immediately check their breathing, sucking reflexes, and temperature regulation, making sure they're feeding and bonding properly. As the instructor in our source hilariously notes, radiography students usually know everything, except maybe where their missing assignments disappear to.
Well, as we move from infancy into early childhood, things get, let's be honest, a little chaotic. In infancy, babies begin learning, babbling, and developing trust, but mostly they just touch absolutely everything, yes, including your very expensive phone screen with their incredibly oily fingers. Then, early childhood hits. This brings massive milestones: walking, talking, reading readiness, and toilet training. But perhaps the absolute most defining milestone of early childhood is when they start asking that one highly dangerous question over and over again: why?
If you survive the why phase, congratulations, you've made it to middle childhood. This is the school-age era where reading and mathematics become central to development. Socially, friendships become deeply important, and a child's self-esteem, values, and morality really start to solidify. Of course, this is also that famously stressful era where bringing home a school report card can suddenly turn into a national emergency at the dinner table.
Okay, time for another quick check. Let's test your intuition about our next major life transition. Which of these stages focuses heavily on identity formation? A. Infancy, B. Middle childhood, C. Adolescence, or D. Old age? Think back to the time in your life when you suddenly became a very dramatic philosopher.
And of course, it's C, adolescence. This is a massive period of emotional changes, dealing with peer pressure and actively seeking out independence. It's the classic age of making dramatic declarations like, "Nobody understands me." It is a heavy, heavy period of identity formation, which perfectly explains why this is the exact stage in life where people tend to change their hairstyles every 2 weeks. Eventually, those turbulent teens give way to adulthood, which our source divides into 2 distinct phases. Early adulthood is all about relationship building, intimacy, and career development. It's also the stage where, as the lecturer notes, adulthood truly begins, meaning your salary enters your bank account and then seems to just disappear immediately. By contrast, middle adulthood shifts focus entirely. This phase is characterized by a psychological conflict known as generativity versus stagnation. It becomes all about mentoring younger people, community service, and really focusing on your overall contribution to society. Finally, we arrive at older adulthood. This stage brings deep reflection and hard-earned wisdom, alongside major life shifts like retirement. But it also brings physical challenges, including health decline and conditions like dementia. For healthcare professionals, this stage introduces the profound reality of the dying process. It involves really understanding the physical changes of dying and a crucial shift toward palliative and end-of-life care to ensure patients maintain their comfort and dignity in their final days. But hey, there's still sharp social dynamics at play during these years. Grandparents might occasionally forget your name, but you can be sure they will never ever forget who owes them money.
Human development theories. Decoding the mind. Let's get into it.
So, we're kicking off this section with Sigmund Freud's theory of the unconscious. Freud believed that hidden, unconscious desires dictate our behavior, dividing our psyche into the id, the ego, and the superego. Our lecturer provides an absolutely hilarious yet perfectly accurate analogy for this. The primal id says, "Eat the whole pizza right now." The rational ego mediates and says, "Maybe just have 2 slices." And the moralizing superego steps in to say, "Remember your cholesterol." It's just a brilliant way to understand how these internal forces constantly negotiate our choices. All right, moving from the unconscious to the conscious, let's see if you know your psychology pioneers. Who developed cognitive development theory? Was it A, Freud, B, Piaget, C, Pavlov, or D, Watson? This is the theory that totally revolutionized how we understand childhood learning.
If you locked in B, Jean Piaget, you got it. Piaget believed that children don't just know less than adults. They actually think entirely differently depending on their age. He mapped out cognitive evolution in distinct steps, progressing from the early sensory-motor stage through the pre-operational and concrete operational stages, all the way up to formal operational thought. And hey, if you got that right, as the lecturer joked, you definitely deserve a free lunch.
Next up is Albert Bandura and his social learning theory. Bandura's core concept is that people learn primarily through observation and imitating the adults and peers around them. As our source points out, this theory of observational learning perfectly explains a universal classroom phenomenon: why students can flawlessly copy complex new dance moves in seconds, but somehow take hours to copy down simple lecture notes.
The last theory we're looking at is attachment theory. This one emphasizes that the bonds we form in our earliest days have lasting impacts. Specifically, it shows that receiving secure attachment and maternal comfort during infancy lays the critical, absolutely non-negotiable groundwork for a child to develop into an emotionally stable and trusting adult. Early bonds literally build adult resilience.
Let's bring this all together. We've covered the complete life cycle, from the prenatal womb all the way to mature older adulthood, alongside the theories that explain our behavior at each step. So why does this matter? Well, if you are a radiography student or really any kind of healthcare provider, understanding these physical, cognitive, and social stages means you can communicate effectively with absolutely any patient, meeting them exactly where they are developmentally. This empathy is crucial, whether you're trying to calm down a terrified toddler or comforting a terminal patient navigating the complex emotional realities of hospice care. As we wrap up this explainer, I have to share this perfectly cyclical bookend from our lecturer. Looking at the grand timeline of human development, we have to acknowledge the humbling reality of our biology. Human development starts with diapers, and sometimes it ends with diapers.
It's a funny, beautiful, and profoundly true summary of the human physical condition. But the psychology of this final stage is just as profound. As humans reach the end, they and their families navigate the deeply emotional psychology of dying. In a clinical setting, this is often framed by the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, or DABDA: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. Recognizing these stages of grief is the final, essential piece of the human development puzzle for any healthcare provider to understand.
Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground today, from the womb to the waiting room. But before you go, I want you to genuinely think about the question we're leaving you with. Of all the stages we explored, from the chaotic toddler years of asking why, to the intense identity formation of adolescence, all the way to navigating the profound grief and acceptance of end-of-life care, which single developmental stage do you think is the absolute most challenging to navigate, and why? Take some time to reflect on your own journey, and keep that curiosity alive until our next explainer.